Hello, Mind Bloomers. This is Mind Bloom, the safe space at the intersection of mental health advocacy and breast cancer awareness. Mind Bloom is your podcast. Subscribe to hear more on female entrepreneurship and the juggling of family life, career goals, and romantic relationships. Not an easy task, especially if your physical and mental health need a big hug right now. Hello, Mind Bloomers. This is Marina Gee, your host, and welcome to Mind Bloom, the podcast for all things mental health and breast cancer awareness. Before we dive into this week's episode, let me just say that Mind Bloom, the podcast, and the content at Mind Bloom U across all platforms is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should always contact your providers for medical counsel. Never disregard any medical treatment or delay seeking professional help because of any content authored or distributed by Mind Bloom. Hi guys, happy Tuesday and welcome to episode 27 of Mind Bloom. You want to stick around to the very end because we have such an interesting interview for you today. Remember that November is Men's Mental Health Month here at Mind Bloom, and we will be talking throughout the month with these amazing, extraordinary, and courageous guys who wanted to give a name and a voice to such an epidemic of stigma and prejudice and taboo, such as males' mental health. I always wonder, why is it so simple to go to the doctor if you have pain in your wrist, or you broke your foot, or your stomach hurts, and not so simple and not so easy to go to seek a professional if you have deeper pain in your soul, let's say. And it's not like pain caused by mental health issues is any easier to handle than any headache or stomachache. Your body will let you know very quickly and very straightforwardly what is going on with the chemicals in your brain. And you may very well start having trouble sleeping, or the other way around, trouble staying awake. You may feel chest palpitations due to anxiety and panic attacks. You can feel trouble breathing, and you're thinking you're having an asthma attack or a pulmonary infection. And as crazy as it might sound, sometimes it's, just anxiety. And you may feel a compulsion to flee, to escape the dreadful situation you encounter yourself in. And this fleeing, this flight, may translate itself into substance use and abuse of alcohol, recreational drugs, opioids. It could translate itself into binge TV watching to numb yourself, to binge eating, sometimes accompanied by purging. All of these things, they seem very, very physical to me, as well as painful. And it's hard for me to imagine and to answer the question, why such a taboo around therapy or around psychiatry or around taking antidepressants? An eating disorder, clinical depression, or things like panic disorders can and will render you impaired, paralyzed. They can cripple your performance at work, your relationships. You start isolating, spending most of your hours looking at screens, whether it's your mobile phone, your Netflix, your work laptop, and you start isolating more and more and more until one day you ask the question, why get out of bed at all? Why getting dressed? Why going out and enjoy the sun? Why go meet my friends if I'm so scared that these people will finally see the fraud that I really am? This is what people will think most of the time. Or why go out if I know I'll be exposed to triggers for my anxiety? And triggers can vary. They can be the tone of someone's voice. It can be children playing in a park. It could be a couple you see walking by holding hands. It could be the gates to the college you always wanted to attend and never had the chance to. It's complicated. Our minds are very intricate, complex, and thank God for that. But at the same time, if we let them, we can become hostage of our thoughts and our limiting beliefs. I used to tell myself all the time, I used to believe that this was the utmost truth, that I was bad with money. In fact, there is a podcast called Bad with Money, because I'm sure so many people feel the same way. And I probably was. I was spending recklessly to numb myself out of my job, out of my commute. So I would scroll down for hours on Amazon, just looking. Sometimes I wouldn't buy anything, but just looking, just losing myself in that infinite list of things you can have that really don't do you any good. So eventually I got into a little bit of debt, because who doesn't in the United States? Or so I thought. This is normal. If I see something that I like, I have to have it immediately. But it wasn't until I started chipping away at those couple $1,000s that I started realizing that I was actually great at money and at controlling myself in that respect and at managing whatever it was that I had each month, aka budgeting. And I got rid of the debt sooner rather than later. And I was left with this amazing feeling of pride and accomplishment. And I was able to change the mindset by 180 degrees. So I don't go about life saying, look how bad I am with money. No, I am great with it. I budget like a champ. I know how to make more. I love the competitiveness and almost the game-like challenges of setting aside X for that month. And it's no longer an unhealthy relationship between the little green ones and myself. And this is just one of the limiting beliefs I have been exposing and bulldozing, really, over the years, especially with the help of therapy and with speaking with friends and finding similar stories. Do you feel you have limiting beliefs? Do you have entire areas in your life you don't even talk about or you don't even experiment with because you can swear that you're just not good at it? The most common is also, I'm not good at math. I'm just not good at math. Even in the very odd chance that you're not good at math, even if you are, don't say it. Don't say it out loud. Don't say it to yourself. because just acknowledging it limits your potential and what you can achieve. So sure, maybe you're not going to be a scientist, a NASA scientist, sure, but that doesn't mean you're bad at math. The rule of thumb is, if you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself. What areas in your life do you not go into? Are you bad at job interviewing? Are you perhaps bad at writing cover letters? Maybe you're bad at project managing. It's just that no one has yet realized that, because your title is project manager. Maybe you're bad at cooking. Maybe you can't bake to save your life, and that used to be me. Maybe you're just not good at relationships and finding the right person for you. Maybe you can't speak in public. You know for a fact you're just not good at it. Maybe you can't stop drinking. I mean, you could if you wanted to. You just don't feel the need to do it because you're not addicted. You can stop any time. You just won't. And just like I was chipping away at my debt a few years ago, little by little, drilling and excavating and just getting in there and turning a pile of a few cents into a major savings of thousands. The same way, these crippling and limiting beliefs will gnaw at you, will eat you from the inside out. Little by little, you don't notice, you don't realize that's what's happening. You just start feeling sadder and sadder. Nothing really makes you happy. You don't even think it's possible to be happy. That's another limiting belief right there. And you resort, because what's the point, right? You resort to some form or other of addictive behavior. In my case, it was shopaholism and eating as well. Things with sugar in them are still very alluring to me. So shopaholism, in my case, as a way of running away from the wreck, the disaster that is our life. This life where we're not good at math, we're not good at having, making, saving, keeping money. Your weapon of choice for self-destruction may very well be workaholism, binge eating, binge drinking, TV binging, oversleeping, and one by one completely give up on the good things in life. So before you go down the spiral any further, just pause and ask yourself that question. What do I know that I'm not good at? And A, where is the evidence for that? And B, can I change that? Is it changeable? Is this something I can work on? And I could be wrong, but 99.9% of the time, it's something you can work on by reading an internet article or downloading an app or chatting with a friend, joining a support group, speaking with a therapist. You are wonderful and amazing. You have such strong skills. Maybe you run like crazy. Maybe you love to dance. Maybe you make your friends laugh all the time. Maybe you play a musical instrument and you're the delight of a party. Just know that you're that good. You're great. You are awesome and you can do anything and everything you feel like doing. Just for now though, keep your mask on, keep your social distance. Maybe don't go to the Fiji Islands just yet. Maybe not just yet. But if you're great at planning, if that's your jam, you can plan that trip. And if that's the case, please give me a call. I will be happy to join you. My guest today is Scott Hardy, or you can just call him Agent Scott. I say this because Agent Scott is the co-host of the podcast Spies, which is a podcast, if you haven't guessed yet, it's a podcast on spy movies. So from all the 007 franchise to the Bourne franchise, True Lies was the subject the other day. They do MIB as well. So in a nutshell, all the movies I have never seen. And now you ask me, so how did you come across Spy Hearts and what's Scott doing in your program? And the answer is very simple. I absolutely love Spy Hearts. I have no idea what Scott and his co-host Cam are talking about. Arm-carrying women in slant dresses, if you can call them that, British accents most of the time, and a whole lot of martinis. That part I tend to like. But the podcast is great. Cam and Scott lead an intelligent conversation about this amazing art form that is film. And that I like. But basically, I listen to the podcast because I really like these guys' accents. But don't tell them that. So one day on Twitter, Scott reached out to me and offered to come on Mind Bloom and speak about his mental health issue. In this case, an eating disorder as well as body dysmorphia. And my first instinct was to respond, I would really love to speak with you. I'm a big fan of your show, but I don't do men. Basically, what I just mean that I don't interview male guests on Mind Bloom. Or I thought I didn't. I guess it was a limiting belief that I was entertaining. So I paused before I responded to Scott. And in my mind, I thought, well, maybe if I can find a couple more male guests, we can make this a month thing. Mind Bloom on men's mental health for an entire month. How about that? And here we are. That's exactly what happened. I basically did not listen to my limiting belief that I was only going to interview women on Mind Bloom. And I said yes. I said yes to an opportunity. I said yes to exploring a different avenue. So what you're about to listen is the result of that exploration. And I am so thankful to Scott for his openness, his bravery, his self-awareness, and his eagerness to help others by sharing his story and letting others know that they're not alone. So stick around for the interview because among other enlightening things, we will be talking about Daniel Craig's trunks. And who doesn't want to talk about that, really? It's coming up right after this. Guys, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Turns out it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. It will also distribute your podcast for you so that everyone can listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcast and many, many more. And guess what? You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So go download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Agent Scott, hello and welcome to Mind Bloom. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. And how are you?
I am great. I'm so excited to have you. I'm a big fan. I hear your voice now, and it is like, oh my gosh, I'm listening to Spy Hearts. It's here, right here in my bedroom. What's happening?
I could read you the intro if you'd like, if it makes you feel like centered.
Grounded and centered. Exactly. Yes. So Scott is a podcast host as well. He hosts with his fellow spy movie lover friend who's in Canada. They host together a podcast called Spy Hearts, and I've happened to take a liking of this podcast, even though I have to say I know zero about spy movies, have never and Scott is just rolling his eyes at me. I've never watched a 007 what's a James Bond movie. See, I don't even know the guy's name.
What's his name? Who is this guy?
What's his name again? I've never watched a James Bond movie. I watched one with Daniel Craig because I was on a date with a cute guy. So I probably only looked at the guy. But still, I listen to Spy Hearts. I like it very much. They have an amazing banter. It's very interesting because, well, basically it's about movies and film, and that I love very, very much. And it's an intelligent conversation.
Whoa. Not intelligent-ish. Wow. One of us, maybe. One of us.
And I like your accents too, both of your accents. So yeah, it's entertaining. I'm in the kitchen doing the dishes and I'm just learning stuff about movies I will probably never watch.
At least you listen. That's all we care about, really.
That's the magic of podcasts. I just called Scott Agent Scott because that's how he calls himself in the podcast and on social media most of the time.
All times, actually. Everyone has to call me Agent Scott. It's a formality at this point. My mum hates it.
Who cares? Mums are overrated. So, Agent Scott, tell me, what makes your mind bloom?
It's such a great question. I love it that you start off with asking this question, because right now we're going through such a weird time that we should be focusing on stuff that makes our mind bloom. And for me, it's a weird answer, and it is time to myself. That really, I'm probably described as a hermit. I think if someone were to, if that was a clinically diagnosable thing, I would be a hermit. I relish in quietness and being by myself and my own thoughts. And one of the things lockdown has provided me is the ability to spend some time by myself.
I agree 100%. I think maybe an introvert, maybe that's something we could call ourselves. I definitely feel that same way. And my brother still to this day laughs and quotes me on one of the episodes when I say I couldn't have enough lockdown. I'm loving it. I love just being in my room, speaking with all these amazing and interesting people, but then just still being in my room. And the lockdown definitely provided that to us. And I think the introvert aspect of just this inherent nerdiness that we cultivate, I guess, is so propitious for podcast hosting.
I can be as enigmatic as I want over a microphone.
Yes.
And so enthusiastic as I want, whereas then I can just turn this all off and sit in silence for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's a good thing for me anyway.
Yeah, for me too. So that's awesome. We have that in common. We have a big love for podcasts as well in common, and not so much James Bond. We have to agree to disagree.
It's good to have things to improve upon. So we know we can build you up from here. You get to experience it for the first time, and that's something to be envious of, because I've watched them all a billion times, so I can't enjoy them again. Well, I can.
You can.
I do. Yeah.
It's funny because I, even without watching the films, I disagree with everything you say on the podcast.
So are you the one that keeps sending us these angry emails then? Is that what it is? Right, okay.
Exactly. Just stop it. No. No, but the reason Agent Scott is here with us today is to speak, hopefully candidly, about mental health and about your specific mental health, and I guess to approach men's mental health and male mental health, which is probably an epidemic, but no one really talks about it. Not a lot of people talk about it. It's not out there. It's a secret. Men don't cry. Men can't cry or have a day where they feel not as good and not as well. And so it's so great to have you here and to have your perspective on these things, these topics. So thank you.
Yeah, it's I feel like it needs to be spoken about more. I have a lot of stories about it. I have a lot of insight through someone who's dealt with it for 33 years in, well, not my whole life, but a good portion of my life in some way, shape or form. It's just unfortunate that I can't speak to people as freely as others can. I can, but I feel as a sex, we are somehow inhibited from exhibiting these emotions because we're deemed as the ones who have to carry the load. Which might be a controversial statement, but I feel that. Whether that's true or not is different, but I feel that pressure.
Yeah. In preparation for our talk, and I think I'm preparing for the month of November to be on male mental health. And so I've been reading and just doing some research on it. And I came across an expression. It's so obvious, but I'd never seen it. It's the man box. So the mailbox is the socialization of men by other men, their parents, their fathers, and just this idea that passes from generation to generation of men take all the load, like you were saying. They bring home the bacon. They don't cry. They're strong. They're the providers of the household. And they don't display vulnerability. They don't feel vulnerable. All of these things. So there's actually a few voices out there, as far as my research went, that are demystifying this and debunking this, and in a way to raise awareness for violence against women and girls, because this patriarchy speech and this toxic masculinity, I think is another term for the man box, is it's an advocate for aggression, and it could be, it doesn't, we don't have to go to aggression and think of it in terms of, a rapist or an abuser, someone who harasses women at work. We don't have to go that far. It's just even the silence, or the not taking action against some of these behaviors is a form of aggression and a form of violence as well. So that's what these people I've been reading their work have been saying, and that's what they mean by the man box. It's also, the man box is almost like this Pandora box that you don't really open. It's just where you put your biggest fears, your insecurities, and you just lock it, and it just stays there forever. Whereas I think women have a lighter attitude about it. We'll cry together. It's not seen as an embarrassment, and to be honest, it's quite freeing to be able.
Yeah, I don't really feel that pressure as much personally. I feel like I've got over a lot of those issues, but I see it within all of my friend groups.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to discuss my problems with other male friends because much as I might be open to discussing it, they don't know how.
Yeah.
So you'll say, oh, I've had a really bad day today in a text to your mate. And he'll be like, all right.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't know. They don't want to hear anymore. They don't want to deal with it because then they have to deal with some of their own issues. Yeah. So it basically links into exactly what you said with Pandora's box. If you open it, they worry that they open that box, their whole world's going to fall apart. Their image of themselves is going to crumble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's this dichotomy between vulnerability and control. Most of these people feel that if they are vulnerable, they will, it's like you're saying, your world's going to crumble. You are going to lose control. Whereas it doesn't have to be that way. I think of myself as even enjoying and taking, learning so much from being vulnerable. And yet I don't lose. I feel I'm still in control. In fact, I think the more vulnerable I feel, the more in control I am of my feelings and just what's going on. And Mind Bloom is a good example of that. Mm-hmm. The more I put myself out there, the stronger I feel, really. We've been talking for a while now about all of these things, and we finally decided to sit down and tape this for posterity.
Wait, this is being recorded?
This is being recorded, and you're going to be on YouTube and on so many countries where Mind Bloom is listened to.
I hope they can understand my accent. Apparently,
even this remote country called Bristol.
Where? It's not even a country, it's a city. See? You don't even know.
So Agent Scott, tell me a little bit about your experience with mental health or mental illness, for that matter.
I think there's probably two main bits of my life, and one probably leads quite well into the other if the psychiatrist was to figure it all out for me. But, and I've spoken about this on other media before. I'm very open about it. My mother was abused by my father when I was a child. My earliest memories are of my biological father beating the leather out of my mum right in front of me. Not a pleasant memory. She left the household with myself and my brother when we were 5. Well, I was 5, he was a bit younger. And now she's married to a wonderful man. I call him dad now. Lovely. But I still saw my biological father for several years after that because he had part parentage or whatever the phrase is. And he progressively got more and more toxic. And that definitely left its print on me. And I felt from a very young age I had to act up, as it were. I had to be like my mum's protector, even though I wasn't. I couldn't do anything at 5 years old to a burly Scottish man doing what he wants when he's pissed out of his head, drunk, I should say, sorry. Not great. But I had this sort of like pressure on me, I felt from a very young age, to have everything in control and be on top of everything and to be the man. And so I struggled a lot of that in my teenage years. And so that was probably the first bit. So I had a lot of anxiety. I didn't really deal with it very well. I probably lashed out a bit. I went through a very dark goth phase. I dealt with it. I got through it. But I haven't seen my biological father in 20 years, more or less now, so good riddance on that one. But it definitely left its mark. And the other bit, which is really what I would probably talk more about today, is I think it's led into a lot of body issues with myself. And I used to be quite overweight as a teenager. I didn't really exercise or know about exercise or good eating. And I eventually lost all the weight. Not in a very good way, let's put it like that, but I lost the weight. And since then I've had body dysmorphia. I was eventually diagnosed with body dysmorphia, but I guess that's what I had for a very long time. And it eventually built into bulimia. The only thing I would say in terms of me is with the purging aspect of bulimia, because there's the binge and the purge, I wouldn't vomit. I would go to the gym for 5 hours.
I see.
Which is it is another version of purging. It's not the most obvious version everyone does, but it is a different version of it. So I've been battling the bulimia, body dysmorphia for, I think, about 10 years. It's only been diagnosed in the last few. Yeah.
You seeked help?
That's right.
Point?
Yeah, so it kind of got to a head at one point when I noticed that I was ditching social events. I was spending every free bit of time at the gym or exercising, or I'd find myself in the house running on the spot or doing squats or something just to feel like I wasn't fat, which is a horrible thing, really. I'm with my partner still. And when I realized that, I was still with her at the time, and she stuck through with that. She must have dealt with some insane behavior I think I must have gone through at some points. But eventually I reached out to the NHS. Fortunately, we have the NHS in this country. And it took some hoops to jump through to get anyone to see me because I wasn't suicidal. And so they were like, well, maybe we'll put you in group therapy. And I was like, well, no, because that doesn't really do it. And eventually, after about 6 months of haranguing and trying to get help, I was eventually given CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's definitely helped me kind of get a grasp of it. I'm not in control of it. I still exercise probably more than the average person, but I have stuff in my house that I exercise with, so it's fine. But it isn't taking over my life as much now. But I can see how it could easily slip back into that, and it's a very dangerous place to be. But that's basically where it got to.
So you're still seeing someone, a professional? How did that go?
No, unfortunately not. I was only allowed 8 sessions on the NHS because it's obviously free or paid for by my taxes. But at the end of the 8 sessions, she deemed that I was quote unquote cured, and discharged me. We had made some progress, but I still think there was probably a lot more there to dig into. But we don't have a lot of therapy right at the moment because you can't do one-to-one counselling sessions. You can do it via Zoom, which for me isn't a very good way of dealing with it. So I haven't been able to see anyone during lockdown. I've been doing a lot of reading to try and help, but yeah, so that only lasted 8 sessions. So I've not really had much of an opportunity to talk about it with people.
So when you say that you lost weight in a not very healthy way, what do you mean? Was it through exercise?
Exercise and starvation, I'd say. And that's probably where some of the bulimic traits started. Around about the age of 16, and for reference, I'm 33 now. So it's been, someone do the math and let me know, 17 years, I think, since then. But I went from about 18 stone to what I am now, which I think is about 10 or 12. I don't know stones very well, but I knew I was 18 stone. I'm about 75 kilograms now. I'm not sure what the difference is, but I've lost a lot of weight. And that happened very quickly and very rapidly. And, but then I had that positive reinforcement when I was in school because I came back after the summer and I had lost all this weight and girls were interested in me all of a sudden. And I was in my band, was doing quite well, and you get a lot of attention. All this stuff was going well. So I had a good feedback loop from losing the weight, which I think is something that definitely imprinted itself in my mind because if you look back a bit, I had to try and control the situation with my mother. And so now I found another way I can try and control my life, and that is from weight management. And you get that positive reinforcement of, Scott, you look so healthy. Scott, you look great, blah, blah, blah. And you just think, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think I just must have dug in really deep, and it's just in my head.
I see. And then did you see yourself binging? Did it become a reality? You noticed it?
It wasn't really until people pointed out to me, specifically the therapist, that I noticed how bad it was. But I would do things like I'd go to the supermarket. I don't know what you guys call them.
Supermarket.
Walmart or something like that for the Americans here. And I would buy, like a box of biscuits or cookies or something like that. I would go home, eat them in secret, and then hide the packaging.
From whom?
Whoever. So, I mean, my partner now at the time when I was doing it, or before that, previous partners, or even when I was living by myself, I would like scurry away and eat it and hide it. Even though living by myself, why am I hiding it?
I see.
You feel that sort of like guilt.
Shame, yeah.
Yeah, which will then cycle back into, okay, now I have to go to the gym for 3 hours and starve myself for a day to try and fix it.
Because you had, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What triggered you? I mean, I don't mean I don't know, specific events in your life, but what were your triggers? Did it anxiety?
I think it's something that we probably didn't dig enough into in the 8 sessions I had, but something I know myself is, I think anxiety is part of it. I've definitely dealt with anxiety most of my life in one way, shape, or form. So I think it's more of a lack of control. So if I feel like I haven't got a grasp on something, I start to have this feeling of like, well, sod it. I'm not going to swear on your podcast. Sod it. I will, throw caution to the wind and have a binge evening. I'll order a massive pizza and I'll have some ice cream and blah, blah, blah. And then the next day I'll wake up and then I'll just be, this massive emotional like wave of guilt will come over me. And then I know I've messed up for the next day. But it was an attempt to try and control everything. It was a strange circle to be in, but I was doing it for over 10 years.
Do you still feel the need to? Yeah,
it happens. I think lockdown's been quite healthy for me overall. I work from home. I am able to control what I do, and I live quite a peaceful life in a very green corner of London. I mean, we're soon to get a dog. I'm even looking forward to that.
Nice.
But I feel the compulsion sometimes.
And what do you do?
What I've learned to do is to try not to, it sounds silly, but try not to feel guilty about it, which is bizarre. Well, that's what they told me to do, basically. And like, if you want to have a large pizza and some ice cream,
do it.
We're human beings. If we fancy something, eat it. We both work jobs. We both have money to pay for the pizza. That's not a problem. So just enjoy it. And don't feel shame. And I think that was one of the biggest things to get over, was the whole shameful. And the other thing was to try and curb the end result, which was to spend longer in the gym. Not that I haven't been to a gym since lockdown started. I dare not go into them, but spending 4 hours working out as a result of having this large pizza is not the healthy way to go. But just continue your life as if it were. And one of the things we did in CBT was a sort of science experiment almost, where they would say, right, go have a large pizza and then just do your normal amount of exercise the next day. Do that and then see if the scale changes. Like, I weigh myself, and lo and behold, it wouldn't make a difference because I was still exercising quite a lot. A large pizza is not going to make a dent, but my brain thought it would make me instantaneously 18 stone again.
Which brings me to the body dysmorphia. So I understand the term. I understand what it means, and I'm sure the people at home too. But I don't understand, exactly what goes on in the mind. Could you tell us more?
Sure. So for me, and body dysmorphia is quite a personal experience. I think a lot of people will see it differently, but I will go through how I've experienced it. And for me, it's a case of feeling fat. Not that there's anything wrong with being fat. If you wish to be that way, you're healthy, you do what you feel is best. But for me, I was almost programmed to feel like feeling fat was a bad thing, or being fat was bad, because of the positive reinforcement I got. So I would have days where it will be part of the circle. So I would have that large pizza, as I said, And then, that bloated feeling you get after you've had too much pizza. We've all been there. And you would feel fat. Now, feeling fat is not an emotion, but it was a trigger in my head. So I would look in the mirror, and instead of seeing, the guy who goes to the gym 6 days a week, and I think a lot of people would have me as a goal almost as a person I can run, I can do all kinds of things. It's great. Not tooting my own horn, but I should keep that in mind. And that was something I was told to keep in mind, that I put the work in, and therefore I deserve to have that idea. But I would see the 18 stone guy.
Yes.
And that's really rough when you've spent the last 6 days in the gym, and yet you still see the 18 stone guy.
Yeah.
So then it programs you to go back into the gym some more. Again.
Wow.
And you can really grind yourself to the ground. I was doing days where I wasn't eating any calories at all. And I was pretending like I was eating, or I would tell someone, oh yeah, I had lunch, don't worry. Whereas I'm starving.
Wow.
Just to not feel fat.
Yeah. Yeah, one can only wonder what it was that you were avoiding and running away from, right? And it's also the look for control and through weight management, like you were saying.
That's the best thing I can think of, how my brain got to this point, was trying to control things I can't control, and therefore getting so anxious about it, I would look for other avenues. Yeah. And by starving myself, at least I'm like, well, I've chosen to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read also that with anorexia as well, you get a high really because you're accomplishing, you've made it, you've done the 12 hours without eating or whatever it is that you set for yourself, and you avoided fainting or falling in with exhaustion after 12, 18 hours without eating. Whatever it is, I've read about that. I think I struggle as well with eating, and with my relationship with food is complicated. But I'm lucky that I can say I've not experienced bulimia or anorexia, and at least that's something I can say. And it's so interesting to have you on, because not only are we talking about male mental health, but we're talking about these, eating disorders, which are an epidemic. And again, no one talks about them. And I would imagine that body dysmorphia in a guy, especially, because I guess we're all body dysmorph, feed the women. They make us this way. They push us to be this way. If you're not the Victoria's Secret model, then, life's not going to be good for you. But it's incredible that as a guy, you come out and share what it is that body dysmorphia feels for you, and what using and difficult experience it must be. And you look around and you don't really know who to turn to for help, right?
It's something that we don't, I can only speak for British males. I know other people around the world, but my friends groups don't experience this, or if they do, they don't speak about it openly. I'm the only one in my friends group that has outed myself, I suppose is the term, that I have these issues. But yeah, it was a crazy thing. And what's most dangerous about it is that it is very cyclical. So one of the things my therapist pointed out to me was there was a starvation study done. I can't remember the year. I think it was in the 40s. If I find it, I will let you know afterwards. And basically, I used to do something called intermittent fasting. Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm. It's a big fad now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I used to convince myself that doing a sort of a 16-8, so you'd be starved for 16 hours and you eat for 8, you seem to know, was a healthy way to go. And now
people swear by this. People swear by this in America. Yeah.
They do. It's a big thing. And I used to, we haven't spoken about this, but I used to be a personal trainer. So I have worked in the leisure industry for a long time. I would recommend it as a tool for some people at certain weights to come down. but it is also quite dangerous for some people with some mindsets. And it turns out I'm one of those people, because what I would find I would do is I would extend my starvation window. And then it'd be like, oh, I'll just do it in 4. And then you'd obviously eat less because you can only eat so much food in 4 hours. Well, I've tried. But and that's what you would do. And back to the starvation study I was saying. So they did this study on, I can't remember who it was. I think it was, if it was an American study, I can't give you the specifics, unfortunately. But basically, they starved people for long periods of time. We're talking 18, 20 hours of a 24-hour window. Yeah. And then fed them, much like the intermittent fasting model. And what they found was the starved people, the longer they starved themselves, the more likely they were to fall into binging. And they would present food, a normal amount of food, and then they would present more if they want it. And you would find the ones who have starved themselves would eat more than they need to eat.
Right.
Because it's like your brain saying, like a caveman mechanic of, I need to gather this food in case I starve for a week.
Again, yep.
And so that was another one of those weird cyclical things I got myself into, where I would convince myself that I could starve longer and eat less, train more, because I want to not feel fat. Whereas the reality was I was pushing away friends. I was spending all of my free time thinking about food or training or not eating food. And it was just a horrible, horrible way of going about your life.
Wow, that's so enlightening. And it's the first time I hear about the perils of intermittent fasting, because here, at least, I don't know Europe anymore, but here everyone just swears by it, and it's the big thing. I've tried it because I try everything as well. It's all right. I do feel I deserve a bigger lunch, because I skipped breakfast.
Yeah, and
I understand.
As I say, I used to be a personal trainer, and if I was to ever take that mantle up again, I would still recommend intermittent fasting for some people and for certain weights and certain goals. But when you're at a perfectly average body mass index and weight, it's maybe not the healthiest approach to take, because, well, calories in, calories out, that sort of stuff, it can be quite a dangerous spiral. So I'm sure it's still quite popular in America, and it's still very popular here, and I would recommend it. But I think there's certain people that it just won't click with. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people.
Yeah. You probably have to have a very balanced relationship with food, which most people, and I would imagine in America as well, is not as common. Because if you intermittent fast and then have a burger, I mean, you're really not doing much for yourself. And I do notice, I have noticed with the intermittent fasting that you can easily push. You've done the 16 hours, whatever it is. No, not 16. 12
That's right. 16 and 8. Yeah.
And 8. You can easily do 18 because you might as well, So that's tricky. That's the danger zone there. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're already in the depths of starving yourself and overtraining yourself, and then you go, well, I could probably go till 2:00 instead of lunchtime.
Yeah.
Your body is screaming out for nutrients, and you're driving it into the ground. And it's done me no favor, like physically. I mean, I'm not going to attribute it, but I'm one of the only men in my family who hasn't got any hair. And that's happened since. Now, I mean, it's still there, but like it's going. And it's obviously stressing my body daily, or it was. I don't do it anymore, fortunately. And I think it's had a physiological effect on me. I can't prove it. But.
Of course. Yes. So how did you endure the gym without nutrition?
You'd be surprised how much of a driving force self-hatred is, unfortunately.
Wow. And
routine. I am a man of routine. So if my plan is for the next 6 days to get up 8:00 and hit the gym for 10, it's not, as I say, it's not something I do currently, but it was back then. It's my routine, therefore I have to do it. If I don't do it, I've thrown myself out of whack and I'm going to have a funny day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. What tips, I guess, could you offer the people at home?
The first thing I would always lean into is just to seek help from people around you. You'd be surprised how easy it is to get very insular about it. And I'm not just speaking for other men, I'm speaking for everyone. You might feel like you're alone in this, and you're not. There are millions and millions of people out there like myself that are dealing with this every day, and there are trained therapists who can actually help you slowly or quickly get out of this state, because you're not doing yourself any favors and you're just making your life harder. So the first thing is to always reach out to others. If you don't feel like you can reach out to a professional, at least reach out to a friend. Some people might not listen as much as others, but someone will eventually listen, and they will be there to help. And that's what I did. I reached out to a therapist. My only other tip would be to listen to your body. If your body says you're hungry, chances are you probably need some food. I mean, there's a difference between being hungry and being bored. Right. We all know what that feels like. But if your body is rumbling at hell and you know you're hungry, have something to eat. And it's very easy for me to say, but your body is a very good indicator of what it needs. And it will tell you. If you need to go to the toilet, it will let you know. If you need to eat, it will let you know. If you need to sleep, it will let you know. So listen to it.
That's so true. Do you have friends, people who reach out to you now in search for help, knowing that you've outed yourself?
Nope.
No.
That's probably my biggest concern, is the people who were already dealing with it. And there's a couple of people in my life I know who are dealing with body dysmorphic issues and bulimia, anorexia and such. They all are women.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's an actual thing, but they're the ones who have come out and spoken about it.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly convinced I know some people who are males who are also dealing with this. And as a guy who worked in a gym for a very long time, I've seen many people, but they won't tell me and they won't talk to me because they don't want to, back to what you said, open the box.
Wow. I hope this will help some people listening. Yeah. You
just got to talk to someone, and it will get better. It's tough, and it's a horrible, when you're in the depths of it, it's not very nice to see yourself in the mirror. And I know that feeling, but you can change that and you can improve that, and talking helps. Me talking to you has helped me.
Yeah. The same. I can say the same. Thank you. And I've learned there's some of these ideas or feelings are foreign to me. I lean more towards the panic disorder and all that. So I can speak all day about that, but, oh wow. It's unbelievable what our minds will do to us.
Unfortunately true. But it's also a wonderful thing that can do lots of wonderful things for us too.
Yes. You just got to listen to it as well as to our bodies. Just listen. It's telling you to rest. It's telling you to read a book. It's telling you to meditate.
Put the phone down. Go out for a walk.
Yeah.
In a quiet area with no one else around. No COVID. But yeah.
Exactly. Agent Scott, you're dismissed. This is great. You can go back to your James Bond world and your 007 world that I know zero of.
I have a martini waiting for me in the other room.
See, that I know.
Taken, not stirred. So yeah, I will get right back to that.
That I know. I think the James Bond movies lost me when, and this is a serious conversation we're going to have now, but lost me with all the girls in bikinis as a feminist.
Do you know what? I completely agree. And there's a lot of female authors that write about this exact issue. Yeah. I would recommend staying more towards the Daniel Craig films, because there aren't many scantily clad women for no reason. Yeah, exactly. At least the newer films have tried to move away from that. Exactly.
No, exactly. And I've seen, yes, I saw the one I saw was, and that's probably why I agreed to see it. You know what I mean? I kind of knew that they were going in that direction. But I just can't stop twitching and itching when I see the James Bond,
Sean Connery,
or the older movies. They're, I'm sure, great movies, but I just can't. It just itches me to see and you were saying in the, I think don't know if it was the last episode, but it was the last episode. Yes, the Dr. No episode.
That's right.
Where they picked a model whose voice they dubbed, but just because of her body and how, good she looked. And
yeah, it's an unfortunate byproduct of the films around that time, especially the Bond films, and some other film series did it too, where they would just tend to use women as props.
Yeah,
and I commented on it on the podcast. I don't like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I like it when everyone's given agency regardless of their sex. That shouldn't have anything to do with it. But also the Bond films are kind of a product of the writer, Ian Fleming, who came up with James Bond. And if you read his books, I mean, it's long gone now, but they are very much rooted in the 50s when they were written.
So misogynistic.
Completely. And racist and lots of other words I could use against them. But at least the later films, Casino Royale being a very prime example of a film I'd recommend anyone to watch.
I'll watch it.
Yeah, it takes what's good on the page and gets rid of the bad stuff, I would say.
Yeah, so far you're not doing a great job at convincing me to watch misogynistic, racist.
Yeah, okay. All right. Casino Royale, I think, will change your mind. I think I'll get you on board.
All right, I will watch that. That's with Daniel Craig too, right?
That's his first one. He looks very young.
He's good to look at too. So yes.
Double standards.
So I'll try.
That's the movie where he walks out of the ocean in the small blue trunks that everyone likes to rewatch.
See, I didn't. See that. I'm not that feminist when it comes to men coming out of the ocean with short trunks.
Hey, I'll watch it. I have no problem looking at Daniel Craig in his trunks.
And who knows, Daniel Craig, if you're listening to my blog.
Call me. I have a podcast for you.
Daniel Craig, I really appreciate your work.
And your abs.
And your
thanks for that.
Your trunks.
Yeah. They're very small.
Stop it. We're still recording for all that.
I know.
Anyway, thank you so much, Scott. This is a pleasure. So enlightening. You've been so generous. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It needs to be talked about more, and I hope my 40 minutes on your podcast maybe changes one person's mind and gets them to talk. If I've done that, I've done something good today.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure you did. Thank you. And that was our episode for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you were able to take away some useful tips and tools to use in your own life. Don't forget to subscribe to Mind Bloom the podcast anywhere you stream your podcasts, and please leave a message on the Anchor FM voicemail if you have any questions or comments for me. Also, please leave a review on the Apple Podcasts app. That would help the podcast reach more people. That would be great. Follow Mind Bloom on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at MindBloomU. And check out my website, mindbloomu.com. Don't forget, a new episode every Tuesday. I look forward to spending time with you again next week. Be well and stay blessed. Bye-bye.